Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks for joining us here today for another edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting tonight's show. Up first here, we still have some high surf advisories out for the north shore of the Seward Peninsula west of Cape Espenberg. That's for north winds 20 to 30 miles per hour will create seas 4 to 6 feet, which could cause some minor beach erosion in that area. And there's also a high surf advisory out for the north shore of St. Lawrence Island, and that's out through Tuesday. Both are out through Tuesday, actually, except the one up here, that's out through noon tomorrow. But the one for St. Lawrence Island through tomorrow, and 20 to 30 mile per hour winds, creating 6 to 8 foot seas there, which probably will cause some beach erosion in that area. Moving on to satellite imagery. First on the southeast coast, upper level system moving inland, bringing rain across much of the panhandle during the day today, and some showers still off the coast having yet to move in, but you can see drying out here to the west, and partly cloudy skies for the North Gulf Coast through the eastern interior areas, but then a lot of clouds here, some clouds through the central interior, more clouds back to the west and on up to the north there. And out to the west here we have a front pushing eastward, low pressure near the Pribilof Islands, and the frontal boundary sliding into the Bristol Bay area and down across the Alaska Peninsula and eastern Aleutians. A lot of moisture out here over the central Aleutians, bringing some light rain, fog, and drizzle to Adak and Atka today. And then up to the north, you can see a push of colder air coming southward into the northern Bering Sea. That's beginning to pick those winds up through the Bering Strait and St. Lawrence Island already, and it's kind of stalled this portion of the front out. Actually, it'll be pushing back south later on tonight. And then some moisture moving northeastward there, bringing some rain and snow to the western Brooks Range today. Had some light rain, just a few hundredths of an inch up here over the north slope in the Arctic coast, and foggy conditions on the eastern Arctic coast. Lots of clouds here in the west with, again, some scattered showers or sprinkles here in many areas, but nothing amounting to a whole lot. Rainfall with this front, just a few hundredths of an inch over the Fox Islands at Unalaska and Cold Bay, and about a third of an inch up there around St. George Island. Picked up a third of an inch of rain in the last 24 hours. So definitely most of the moisture up here to the north, that's all going to be shifting inland. And then lots of clouds and areas of scattered showers back to the west. On the southeast coast, all the rain occurring today and the shower conditions there. Trough still off the coast there. And then you can see the clouds gathering here with the next system that'll be moving northeastward and tracking in toward the Queen Charlotte Islands tomorrow afternoon, bringing a chance of rain to the extreme south coast at that time. But once this low moves in, higher pressure here over the Gulf of Alaska, western Gulf today, will build in over the panhandle for dry conditions, showers ending tonight. Otherwise, cleared out along the North Gulf Coast today, temperatures rising into the 60s with Copper River Basin partly sunny. Morning clouds gave way to afternoon sunshine over Cook Inlet, and pretty nice conditions here over the eastern interior areas. And looking at the forecast for tonight, that whole trough and low pressure areas slide off into the east, so numerous showers this evening for the southeast coast, and then those will become isolated after midnight, kind of lingering a little longer here over the southern and southeastern portions of the panhandle, but light winds and maybe some clearings showing up as well. Otherwise, stays dry for the North Gulf Coast, and then a nice evening to start with here over south central Alaska. But the clouds increase later on tonight, and then after midnight, the chances for rain and showers also increase here over the Kenai Peninsula on up across the Susitna Valley, and that same pattern out to the west across the Kuskokwim Valley. And then that's going to link up with this moisture pushing inland. So rain moving on to the southwest coast and then pushing inland after midnight with some rain up along the Yukon Delta coast, rain with the front extending down across the Alaska Peninsula, some scattered showers following in behind. And again, this band of moisture pushing southward or starting to push southward. So that's going to keep the Pribilof Islands in the rain and fog through tonight. And then look for some snow or rain and snow in the Brooks Range to the eastern Arctic coastal areas. Could get an inch or two accumulation at the higher elevations. Look for fog and drizzle with IFR conditions along the western Arctic coastal areas there. And then taking a look at tomorrow, we'll see this system down here, at least initially, tracks up toward the Queen Charlotte Islands the way it looks at this point in time. So that'll bring a chance of rain to the southern southeast coast, extreme southern areas there, Metlakatla, Annette, over toward Heidelberg, and then gale warnings are also in the forecast for the south coast. East winds increasing to 35 knots during the afternoon tomorrow, but high pressure, much nicer conditions, drying out. It will be dry here over the northern and central southeast coast with some partly sunny skies. It'll stay partly sunny, but look for the clouds to increase along the North Gulf Coast and the Copper River Basin areas, but should remain dry most of the day. Periods of rain for south central Alaska, Cook Inlet up into the Matanuska-Susitna Valley areas, rain spreading over Kodiak Island, and rain from the southwest coast up into the southern Kuskokwim Valley, getting more showery up toward McGrath and then into the central interior areas with showers extending over toward Eagle. And again, some snow over the northeastern Brooks Range. Could see 1 or 2 inch accumulation up there, and then some rain and snow showers, not amounting to a whole lot there on the western Arctic coast, with some clearing possible here through the Noatak Valley down into the Kobuk Valley, as well as the southern Seward Peninsula. Should be dry there along the Yukon Delta with coastal areas. Could see some clearing periods as well. Rain and fog continue here over the central Aleutians, and again, another wet day with a low pressure quite close to the Pribilof Islands. Scattered showers for the Alaska Peninsula. And taking a look for the forecast for Wednesday, this system moves on out, and showers exiting the southern southeast coast and a few showers trying to work into the north. So it should be a dry and partly sunny day, at least in part, for much of the Panhandle. But the North Gulf Coast, look for periods of rain with moisture streaming northward, another band right through here. And then look for some rain along this frontal boundary here, low pressure over the central interior, narrow band of light precipitation along that warm front, and then trailing back along the cold front down into Kuskokwim Bay and into the Bering Sea again toward the Pribilof Islands. Looks showery and windy here over the central and western Aleutians. Winds will increase Wednesday over what they'll be on Tuesday there for the Adak and Atka areas, but staying on the light side here. Could be some small craft advisories there for the eastern Aleutians, and then small craft advisories with this deepening system moving up toward the Alaska Peninsula. Possibly rain heavy at times with 25-knot winds there in the marine forecast. Rain spreading back in across the Bristol Bay and, of course, covering all of the Alaska Peninsula, with rainfall chances up the west side of Cook Inlet over to the western Alaska Range areas. Otherwise, just lots of clouds and showery conditions elsewhere across southern Alaska. Drying out, but windy conditions up across the Chukchi Sea to the western Arctic coastal areas. Snow through the central and eastern Brooks Range, especially the northeastern Brooks Range, with scattered snow showers along the eastern and central Arctic coast, drier back to the west. And temperatures this afternoon were in the 50s across all of the southeast coast. 57 there at Klawock, one of the warmer locations. Juneau at 53 and 54 at Sitka. 52 today at Yakutat, but Cordova pushed up to 64 degrees. These are mid-afternoon temperatures. Valdez 61 with some sunshine. Nice day in the Copper River Basin at Gulkana with 60 degrees. Upper 50s here for the Kenai Peninsula, Anchorage area into the Susitna Valley, with 58 recorded at Fairbanks, and the upper 50s for the Delta and Northway area, 57 at Fort Yukon, 56 at Bettles, 43 at Anatuvik, and temperatures on the Arctic coast, upper 30s there for most of the areas. A little milder back to the west there, Cape Lisborne at 40 degrees, 48 in Kotzebue, and upper 40s here along the Seward Peninsula on the south coast. Otherwise 59 at McGrath, 55 at Sleepmute, 48 there at Amonic, and 54 degrees at Bethel. Out to the west, Tin City at 41 degrees with those north winds increasing. Same thing for St. Lawrence Island, lower 40s there, and those winds on the increase. 50 degrees this afternoon at St. Paul, mid-50s over the Aleutians, and for the Alaska Peninsula, lower to mid-50s, although Unalaska goes up to 56, 57 at King Salmon, near 60 there for Kodiak Island with a lot of sunshine. And for the lows tonight, in the 40s here for the southeast coast, and again, mid to upper 20s here over the eastern interior where the skies are clearer. Then back to the west here will be in the upper 30s to lower 40s throughout the Tanana Valley, but near freezing along the Brooks Range there, and near or slightly below freezing there for the eastern and central Arctic coastal areas. 30s back over the northwest and the Seward Peninsula, 40s here out to the southwest coast, upper 40s for the Alaska Peninsula, the Aleutians, and the Bering Sea. And for highs tomorrow, 30s for the North Slope and the Arctic coast, 40s, mid to upper 40s here over the northwest interior areas, and 50s to lower 60s here over the Tanana Valley, mostly in the mid to upper 50s here over south central Alaska with the increase with the clouds and rain conditions there, so not much warmer than that, and about the same here across the southeast coast. Some southern areas there may reach 60 degrees tomorrow afternoon. Flying weather should be a VFR day there, maybe some marginal VFR creeping into Dixon entrance during the afternoon hours, but generally looking VFR here across all of the southeast coast with the big area marginal conditions out over the Gulf of Alaska. IFR conditions here northeast Bristol Bay into Cook Inlet and along the western Alaska Range, and also some of that slipping in across the Kenai Peninsula into western Prince William Sound. Big area IFR up there along the Arctic coast and eastern North Slope down into the Brooks Range, kind of trailing back here into the Kuskokwim Valley on out into the eastern Bering Sea with marginal VFR for the eastern and central Aleutians. Passes Anatuvik looks IFR tomorrow, as does Adigan. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR becoming IFR during the day. Rainy, marginal VFR. Windy looks marginal. Isabel starting out VFR, then gradually becoming marginal in the afternoon. Mentasta, though, staying VFR the entire day. Tanita, VFR becoming marginal. And for Portage, marginal conditions deteriorating to IFR at some point in the day tomorrow, but Chilkoot and White will be VFR. Looking at the freezing levels here, about 8,000 feet or so here across the southeast coast, and then the colder air coming in for the north at the surface there along the Arctic coast and into the North Slope with 2,000 feet coming southward to about St. Lawrence Island and 4,000 feet along the Yukon Delta coast with 6,000 feet pushing south of the Aleutian chain there, but kind of angling back up toward the Alaska Peninsula. Icing possibilities above 6,000 feet with the main front pushing into the southwest coast there, Nunivak Island back down, spreading into Kodiak Island. Areas of icing kind of increasing here over south central Alaska and into the central interior with some icing possibilities above 4,000 feet just grazing the western Arctic coast there. And then icing, most of this icing will stay to the south, but could come across Dixon entrance tomorrow afternoon, but that'd be above 9,000 feet. And the winds aloft showing westerly wind flow, actually this upper low coming southward there, pushing the jet south of the Aleutians, tracking eastward there. And that should take that system mostly into the Queen Charlotte Islands, but the southern southeast coast right on the edge. Another northern branch up through here along the Arctic coast there, bringing some disturbances into that area and eventually some colder air in on Tuesday. And then that next system down here developing in this jet max will be guided up toward the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island. 9,000 foot winds showing southerly flow, pretty light here over the south central interior with just 10 to 15 knots up through the eastern interior, but those 30 knot winds through the Bering Strait increasing to 35 knots over the northern Bering Sea on out to the western Aleutians, then back to the light wind conditions here over the central and eastern Aleutian areas with the southeast coast looking at an increase in the winds, mostly along the south coast again tomorrow afternoon with lighter conditions up to the north. 3,000 foot winds increasing here just west and southwest of Prince of Wales Island with light wind conditions for the remainder of the Panhandle. Southerlies 5 to 15 knots from the North Gulf Coast through the central interior areas, and then trough axis right through here, and those northeast winds, 15 knots there across Kivalina, picking up to 30 knots through the Bering Strait and 35 knots over the northern Bering Sea. Southwesterlies, 15 to 20 knots here, not too strong for the eastern Aleutians in toward Bristol Bay. And on to turbulence with those gusty winds. Look for occasional moderate chop there below 5,000 feet through the Bering Strait, St. Lawrence Island, down into the northern Bering Sea, staying to the northwest of the Pribilof Islands, but some light to isolated stuff getting down into the western Aleutians. Otherwise pretty icing free or turbulence free, nothing significant here through much of the interior and the mainland, and icing with the gale force winds there. Probably be some turbulence increasing here near Prince of Wales Island tomorrow afternoon. And after hangar flying, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary O'Connor with the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation and the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health here in Anchorage. We are grateful to Alaska Public Media and their sponsors for allowing us to bring you hangar flying. This evening, we are pleased to have Ms. Willow Hetrick back on the show. Welcome back, Willow.
Thanks, Mary. Good to be here.
Willow is the winner of the 2015 Ellen Paniak Memorial Scholarship, which is given by the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation. Congratulations on the scholarship, and your application, I have to tell you, showed some real thoughtfulness about a career using aviation as a means of carrying out responsibilities in wildlife management. How did you find out about this scholarship if you have been working in other areas that aren't even aviation related?
Yeah, I am part of the Safety Foundation and also a part of the Alaska chapter of the 99s who share a scholarship poster, I'm sure you're aware, and that's how I found out about the scholarship.
So I don't have to ask you about the benefits of being a member of the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation, as you've already utilized one of the prime reasons that somebody in your position might be a member.
Yes, and I'm so thankful to the Foundation for the scholarship and to you and the rest of the scholarship committee. But aside from the scholarship, the newsletters are fantastic, and just the directory of people that are part of the foundation and joining the safety seminars that I'm sure you work tirelessly to put on every single year is just, it's invaluable as a pilot.
Well, thank you. We do work hard, and we're happy to have that feedback. Thank you. Back to the scholarships. All of our scholarships, the Tom Wardley, Ginny Hyatt, and Ellen Paniak Memorial Scholarships, are all worth up to $1,500 each. What are you going to do with the money?
Well, when I originally applied for the application, I stated that I was going to use it for a commercial rating, and it turns out I ended up finishing the commercial rating before I was awarded the scholarship. So that was very exciting. Moving forward, I transitioned right into doing CFI training, and I have already used the scholarship funds to get a spin endorsement at Merrill Field. And moving forward, I just would like to use the scholarship funds to have an instructor with me in the left seat while I learn all the maneuvers, private, commercial maneuvers from the right-hand perspective of the airplane.
You mentioned spin training. I think it's a fantastic idea, not just for CFI candidates, but for any pilot who would like to get familiar with upset recovery or improve their situational awareness. Can you tell us what that was like?
Sure, and I've heard that private and commercial pilots are the pilots that are most susceptible to getting into a stall or spin accident. And most of those accidents occur takeoffs, go-arounds, landings, and maneuvering at a low altitude. And for those Alaska pilots watching the show, we have to think about how many times we do all of those things I just mentioned, especially maneuvering at low altitudes. And it was a great training. I did it at Merrill Field in a super decathlon. We went up to 8,000 feet and practiced some stalls because it was a new airplane for me. Also, we did some barrel rolls, which was very exciting. And then we did several spins, 2 to the left and 2 to the right. And the flight was about an hour, and there was also about an hour of ground. So it was a lot of information all at once. I would recommend any pilot to do that. It doesn't matter if you're going for a CFI or not. It was just great to realize how fast an airplane can get into an unusual attitude and how fast your world just gets turned upside down, but most importantly, getting out of it.
Did you find it was pretty straightforward and that your lesson on the ground prepared you adequately for recovering?
Absolutely, it did. It did. It worries me a little bit because a spin would happen so fast. And in that emergency situation, you know, our tendency is to just not freeze, but get a little nervous. And so just knowing what the airplane does and what's going to happen and what it's going to feel like when you maneuver the controls to get out of it.
So you obviously feel this made you a better pilot.
I think so. Yeah, I feel safer, and knowing how airplanes get into that situation was the most important. Unfortunately, it seems like, from what I've read, that most of the airplanes get into that spin scenario at 1,000 feet or less, and recovery is difficult at that point. So preventative, you have to be preventative and try not even to have that scenario.
You're very right. Thank you so much. So, Willow, thank you for taking time out of your day to come and talk with us and share your experiences. We thoroughly enjoyed having you on the show, and we'll look forward to seeing your application again as you are eligible to apply for another scholarship next year.
Oh, wow, that's great. Okay.
Good luck with your training.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank the Alaska Public Media for their support of hangar flying, and to the members of the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation, whose support makes these scholarships possible. Supporting people as they get started in aviation careers is the best way to ensure a healthy future for aviation. Until next time, fly safely.
There's still some sea ice here down along and north of the barrier islands there along the eastern coastline, and then the main ice edge over the next 4 or 5 days. This area of ice may shift to the west 5 to 10 nautical miles, and then the overall ice edge up through here and back through this area, that whole thing may shift to the west 10 to 15 nautical miles through Saturday. And looking at the coastal forecast there, again, east winds increasing to 35 knots here down on the south coast, and then lighter easterly winds on up the coastline, becoming southeast there for the north coast. Light variable conditions in over the central inside waters, and southeast 20 for Clarence Strait, south 15 for Lynn Canal. And for Wednesday, small craft advisories there for northern Lynn Canal. South winds increase to 25 knots, seas building to about 5 feet. Much lighter southerlies here for Stevens Passage. Light northwest breeze there across the southern inner channels, and northwesterlies at about 15 on the south coast, turning west here on the south central coast, and then southerlies here at 20 knots for the north coast with seas 8 to 9 feet. And for Prince William Sound, east winds at 10 knots tomorrow, southeast 20 knots there for the North Gulf Coast. Light variable winds for Cook Inlet and the western Gulf Coast down across the Barren Island areas. Southeast 15 for the Kamishak Bay area, and then south Shelikof Strait. Light winds from the southwest there along the east side of Kodiak Island. And Wednesday's outlook, again, that storm system approaching from the southwest down in that area. So small craft advisories in the forecast here for southeast winds there, Kodiak Island. Easterlies at about 20 for Shelikof Strait, but small craft advisories in across the Barren Islands. Southeast winds 20 knots for the North Gulf Coast, and Prince William Sound has 15 knots from the southeast in the forecast. Light variable winds continue for northern Cook Inlet, 10 knots with seas 2 feet or less. And out to the west there, Bristol Bay, light southerlies tomorrow, and here on the Pacific side of the peninsula, west-southwest winds at 20 knots. On the Bering Sea side, lighter southwesterlies, seas at about 5 feet, but running 7 feet here to the south. And then on Wednesday, look for northeast winds, actually small craft advisories here for the northeast winds at 30 knots there for the Alaska Peninsula, and southeast 25 knots there from Old Chignik up to Sitkinak. Northeasterlies from Bristol Bay down along the Bering Sea side of the coastal areas there at about 20 knots with seas 3 to as high as 6 feet. And out in the Aleutians, southwesterlies 15 knots for the Fox Islands, and then northwest 15 for the central Aleutians. Small craft advisories out towards Shimmy and Attu. And looking at Wednesday's outlook, we've got northerly winds at about 25 knots here for the western and Aleutians, and then northerlies up to 30 knots here for the central Aleutian areas with seas 9 to 13 feet there, Adak and Atka. And then small craft advisories, at least to start with, here for the eastern Aleutians, gradually diminishing into the afternoon and evening. Up along the southwest coast, south of Nunivak Island, variable winds at 15, but northeast 30 knots there north of the island. Northerlies at 30 knots for St. Lawrence Island. Northeast 30 for the northern Bering Sea. And then variable winds become northwest at 20 in the afternoon for the Pribilof Islands. For Wednesday, northerlies 25 knots with small craft advisories all across the Bering Sea to the southwest coast, but south of Nunivak Island a little bit lighter. And up along the Arctic coast, northerly winds to northwest on the light side here for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. And then the central coast, north at about 15. Same forecast there for the western coast. And then small craft advisories from Wales to Cape Thompson for northerlies at 25 knots. And for Wednesday, pretty brisk northeast winds here for the western coast, and still small craft advisories from Wales to actually Cape Beaufort, and small craft advisories for the western coast. Northeast winds, but much lighter here on the eastern coast, still about 15 knots with seas 3 feet. And looking at tonight's weather again, showers this evening become isolated after midnight as high pressure builds into the panhandle there. And then showers increase, and actually chances for rain increase here across south central Alaska. Kind of cloudy and showery back to the west. Some snow in the Brooks Range, and this system bringing rain into the southwest coast and the Alaska Peninsula, while spreading over much of south central Alaska, all the way back wet conditions into Bristol Bay and the Kuskokwim Delta area, with more showery conditions through the central interior areas. And then this system moving in to the Queen Charlotte's brings gale force winds for the south coast, but pretty nice conditions up around Sitka and Juneau. And then more rain with this system, rain and gusty winds coming into Kodiak Island, Bristol Bay, and the Alaska Peninsula on Tuesday, and some snow up in the Brooks Range. Have a great evening. Thanks.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.